Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. Okay, picture this. Have you ever been left on red for, 2 whole days, just staring at your phone, racking your brain, wondering exactly what went wrong? Yeah, we've all been there. If you've ever found yourself just totally baffled by modern dating, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going straight to the source material to finally demystify male romantic behavior. We're going to break down the whole shebang, the biology, the psychology, and all those hidden signals that reveal what is actually going on inside a guy's head when he's falling in love. So let's start with a big one. Have you ever wondered why guys suddenly pull away when they actually like you? It's the ultimate relationship paradox, right? Everything's going perfectly, the connection is super real, you're having these amazing deep conversations, and then boom, distance, radio silence. It can feel incredibly frustrating, and honestly, it makes you feel like you did something wrong or missed a step. But as the research shows, that confusing behavior, it's rarely about you doing something wrong. Actually, it's often this deeply ingrained biological and psychological response to forming a genuine connection.
Okay, let's dive into this with part 1. The thrill of the chase and the biological reality behind why men love the pursuit.
To really understand this whole chase dynamic, we've got to look at something called the dopamine loop. Look, we've all heard the cliche that men love the pursuit, right? But here's the thing, it's not just a social construct. It is literally hardwired into the human brain. Dopamine is that fancy neurotransmitter your brain releases when you're doing something pleasurable. But here is the secret. The brain doesn't just release a huge dump of dopamine when you finally get into the relationship. No, it releases it for every single tiny step taken towards that goal. Think about that little ping on your phone from your crush. That rush you feel? Yep, that's dopamine. Getting a number, setting up a date. The thrill actually comes from the dopamine rush of attaining the unattainable. And here's the kicker. Once the commitment actually happens, that specific loop, it stops. And that is exactly why the sudden lack of a chase can make a guy feel, mysteriously bored or stuck, even if he is crazy about you. Now, take that biological loop and contrast it with two incredibly powerful psychological drivers. On one side, you've got Freud's concept of the id, that primal, impulsive part of the personality that just demands immediate ego validation and totally ignores logic. Winning a really difficult, seemingly unattainable prize, that heavily inflates a guy's sense of self-worth. It feels like this epic conquest. But on the other side of the coin, you have the classic grass is greener syndrome. This is that pessimistic, restless habit of just relentlessly seeking more, subconsciously assuming there must be something better out there. When you understand the clash between these two drivers, it suddenly makes total sense why some men get caught in this vicious cycle of chasing temporary validation rather than just settling in and building a genuine, long-term partnership. Moving right along to part 2, let's look at his body language and how to decode the visible signs of attraction. So, moving from all that internal brain chemistry to the external cues that happen right in front of us. Because let's be real, when words fail, the body speaks volumes. We're talking about subtle, involuntary physical signals that a guy simply cannot fake, no matter how cool he's trying to act. When he's interested, his physiological arousal naturally spikes. You will literally see his pupils dilate just to take more of you in. You might even notice his nostrils flare slightly. That's just an adrenaline rush and an increased heart rate kicking in. Oh, and he'll blink a lot less frequently because he is hyper-focused on you. And hey, if he's staring and not blinking, don't worry, he's probably not a serial killer, he's just really, really captivated. His eyebrows might briefly raise when he spots you across the room, and he will totally subconsciously mirror your posture or your hand movements to build rapport. These are just the body's unfiltered, incredibly honest ways of saying, I'm into you. And this brilliantly illustrates what behavioral science tells us. There's this fascinating study on physiological arousal, and it noted that arousal absolutely peaks when two people make genuine, clear eye contact. It's that simultaneous sending and receiving of gaze signals that creates this powerful, undeniable spike in attraction. It's not just about him checking you out from afar, right? It's about that shared, active experience of being seen and acknowledging each other. That movie moment where the rest of the room just kind of fades away. That is pure, unadulterated neurochemistry at work. Which leads us to a pretty massive misconception in dating, the casual guy versus the invested guy. Relationship expert Matthew Hussey points out something super interesting here. A guy who is only casually interested in you, he's usually going to be relaxed, smooth, and super charming. And why is that? Because there are zero stakes. He doesn't really care if he messes up. But a guy who is genuinely, truly into you, he puts a ton of pressure on himself. Suddenly he gets sweaty palms, he fidgets, he mixes up his words, he might literally knock over his water glass. That awkwardness is actually a huge compliment. If he's a little tongue-tied, it means he actually cares about the outcome of the conversation.
All right, let's peel back the onion further in part 3. Hidden signs that he is completely hooked.
Let's really recontextualize some of those confusing moments you might be seeing, because this is where counterintuitive relationship psychology gets really fascinating. For example, what you see is a guy going dead quiet right after a deep, meaningful conversation. Naturally, your first thought is, oh, great, he's pulling away, he's losing interest. But what it actually means? He is processing real, overwhelming feelings that probably just hit him a lot harder than he expected. Men often just need time in their own heads to categorize those big emotions. Or how about this one? What you see is him acting slightly off or weird around his friends when you're hanging out with them. What it actually means is he's caught between two totally different versions of himself. He's got the loud, carefree bro persona with his buddies, and the vulnerable guy who is falling for you. He's just awkwardly trying to bridge that gap.
So the crucial point is this. Carelessness means low stakes. Carefulness means you matter. When you start taking up permanent real estate in a guy's head, talking to you stops being effortless for him. Suddenly, he starts policing his own behavior. He'll edit his words mid-sentence because he's terrified of saying the wrong thing. He cares so deeply about how you perceive him that he just gets incredibly careful. So if you notice him pausing, recalculating, or acting just a tiny bit more guarded, please don't immediately assume he's pulling away. That carefulness, that's not distance. It's a profound sign of respect and deep, deep interest.
The absolute best signs that he is hooked live in these tiny, unguarded moments. Like, he'll start making these really thin excuses to text you. You definitely know the ones. He'll send some random meme or ask a question he could have literally Googled in 2 seconds. He just needed a cover story to talk to you. You'll also notice his brain automatically remembering tiny, obscure details you casually mentioned weeks ago, like your favorite weird candy or a random podcast you like. You might see his mood naturally adjusting to match yours without him even trying. And you will for sure start to notice unprompted protective instincts. He'll step in to help you out quietly, making sure you get to your car safe, or fixing a problem for you, even when he has absolutely zero obligation to do it.
But we really have to remember this fundamental truth. Real feelings mean he could genuinely get hurt. Real feelings give you actual terrifying power over his day. So when those deep feelings start creeping in, a guy's instinct usually isn't to lean in and make it painfully obvious like some boombox serenade in an 80s movie. His instinct is to pull back, test his own emotional boundaries, and try to manage the terrifying reality that he is way, way more into you than he ever planned to be. He is basically bracing for impact.
Let's move to part 4 and see how this all builds into triggering the hero instinct and securing real commitment. So, what does this all mean for you? How do we use this psychology to build a lasting, committed relationship? Well, now that we understand the why behind his behavior, we can tap into something called the hero instinct. This is a biologically hardwired urge in men. It's a psychological drive that is literally right up there with hunger, thirst, and the need for shelter. Men desperately, deeply want to feel respected, valued, and seen as a provider or a protector by the people they care about most. If you can fulfill this ingrained need for purpose within your relationship, you are activating a powerful emotional trigger that practically guarantees his long-term commitment. Let's break down the exact procedure for activating this instinct. And don't worry, you don't have to compromise your own fierce independence to do it. Step 1. Simply ask for his help with daily tasks. It could be fixing a leaky faucet, opening a ridiculously stubborn jar, or just asking his advice on a tricky situation at work. Doing this makes him feel competent and needed. Step 2. Give him genuine, specific praise. Think about it. Society really doesn't offer men a ton of affirmation, so they almost never receive compliments. When you offer authentic appreciation, it hits them incredibly hard. And step 3. Let him naturally protect you. Allow him to step up. Let him carry the heavy bags or be that rock-solid presence when you're having a crisis. It fulfills his primal DNA and completely reinforces his value in your life. Now, to make sure you keep this dynamic healthy and engaging, you want to keep a few boundaries and positive reinforcements in mind. First, give him a challenge. Men love to be kept on their toes. They literally thrive on overcoming obstacles. Also, ask for his advice. It shows that you truly respect his intellect and his problem-solving skills. Allow his healthy masculine energy to just flow freely. But, and this is absolutely crucial, do not act like his mother, okay? He needs to manage his own messes so he can feel like your equal partner, not a dependent. And finally, just be honest about your feelings, because if you constantly pretend everything is flawless and you never need a shoulder to lean on, he never gets the chance to step up and make things better for you. The absolute beauty of this concept is just how simple it is in practice.
Take a phrase like, "You saved the day yesterday when you helped get my car started." That is a perfect, real-world example of activating the hero instinct. It's specific, it's genuine, and it directly frames him as your reliable protector. You aren't giving up an ounce of your power, you are just acknowledging his contribution. Small, everyday phrases like this build up his confidence and essentially train him on exactly how he wants to be treated, making him feel absolutely essential to your happiness. So I'll leave you with this final thought that you on. Should we keep waiting around for those loud, obvious movie romance gestures, or should we finally start trusting the quiet, awkward signs of a real connection? Because true romance, it isn't always some grand poetic speech in the pouring rain. Sometimes it's a guy who is so incredibly nervous around you that he literally forgets his own name. It's a guy who goes quiet because he cares just a little too much and who just wants to fix your squeaky floorboard so you know without a single doubt that he has your back. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.